Welcome to another episode of Beyond Physical, where we talk about the mental, emotional, social, and at times spiritual benefits of exercise. We believe that exercise is more than movement, and this podcast is our attempt at sharing that message with the world by sharing our own as well as our guests' experiences and knowledge. If you enjoy it, we ask that you please spread the message by leaving a rating and review, or even better, by sharing with a friend. Oh, that's double Afrikaans after a small break on a Tuesday. How's it? Do we be rolling? Welcome to another episode of Beyond Physical. I'm here with Matt. This episode is not sponsored by Plato, although we are out here with our Platos. Thanks, Matt, for the Plato.
Pleasure.
Cheers. We've got a double maths after big break on a Thursday before Steve Mack. Flashbacks. Shout out Steve Mack. Shout out Strength and Conditioning. Shout out
Steve
Bishop
Mack?
Stuyvesant College. Who's Steve Mack?
Steve Mack.
Steve Mack, for Mark asking, and those at home, is our strength and conditioning coach. Well, was our strength and conditioning coach at school. He used to traumatize us after school sometimes with horrendous conditioning sessions.
Jeez.
With sleds and things.
Sounds lovely.
Shout out Steve Mack. Also, he's actually the 2007 World Cup winning strength and conditioning coach of the Springboks.
That's insane.
Small part that's probably important as well.
Imagine being part of that.
He's actually a very well-renowned
Wow.
S&C guy. A small one to get us going. I thought oh my word, bro. I thought it would be an interesting way to start. Mark and I were actually discussing post-urination kind of rituals, and I thought it might be quite interesting to find out. You at home, if you are a guy in particular, when you go to the bathroom and you wee, do you shake or dab, or do you shake and dab? And motivate your answer. Matt, do you shake and dab, only dab, or only shake?
You mean like a dab like this?
That, but then also like a toilet paper
Can you
dab.
imagine dab like this? Yeah, definitely a dab.
Do you?
Yeah, got it.
I think it makes a big difference.
It does. Imagine like not. I
Does
can't-
you
not
not
dab?
I can't
You just
imagine.
shake.
I'd usually just shake.
No, bro.
Do you
What?
dab?
I had both.
I've started dabbing
I'm a bit
recently.
older than you, so I'm a bit further down the line.
Because it's necessary. No, it's starting to become necessary. Unfortunately.
This is the only way.
Yeah. After your dab, you dab again.
Yeah. You go like that.
No, it's definitely. And have you dabbed from the beginning? Like from when you were a small child? Yeah. Really? Bro,
Yeah.
I was never taught that.
Really?
I was just taught to shake.
Like if you think about it, it's almost like it just makes sense.
It does make sense, especially after recent events. I've definitely found some challenges with just the shake. But swiftly moving on, we are going to dive into an overrated or underrated, which we can actually begin with that initial chat. Overrated or underrated dabbing after you wee as a guy? Definitely underrated.
Underrated.
I think that's unanimous. Leave your comments and opinions below. But we're going to start off with a friendly competitor down the road, Virgin Active Silo. Not Virgin Active in general, but Virgin Active Silo. Overrated or underrated?
You can start with that.
I'll start. I think that Virgin Active Silo is highly underrated. I think that it gets a lot of pushback because of the pricing point. It's like $3,500, almost four grand a month, I think. So it's not cheap, especially for South African consumers. I'm not a member of Silo, but I've gone to the Silo a few times on guest passes, and I think it's absolutely amazing. I think the value is tremendous. I think the co-working space pays for the membership itself, because you get co-working spaces, you have the sauna, steam room, the gym facility, and it's like way cleaner and nicer kept than like the Point or any of the other Virgin
That's
Active
nice,
clubs. So from the point of view of like, I think to be honest, the main selling point for me is the co-working space. It's like you have your gym club or your health club. Interestingly enough, from a marketing point of view, Virgin actually doesn't position themselves as a gym. They position themselves as a health club. And I think that Silo embodies that
So
amazingly.
that's everything that you need to pursue
Live a healthy lifestyle.
and live a healthy lifestyle
Yes.
in different factors.
Yeah, with work, with like the way you kind of look and feel in terms of like they've got the barber shop and the like shoe shiner and the clothes steamer and like all that vibe. So I think it's really cool. I think it's pretty underrated, but I know a lot of people think it's a little bit overpriced.
Yeah.
But I think that the price is worth it. Like a lot of people, because we are quite expensive. Well, not expensive. We offer really high value at Horizon. Our price is according to that. So a lot of people will chat to me like potential clients would be Silo members. And they chat to me about it, and I'm like, you know what? If you like working from home and a co-working space and blah blah, that's a great option for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like very quick to kind of be like, that's cool. You know, if you want to get strong, live better, be part of a community, and grow with what I believe to be an amazing brand and movement, then of course we're the place for you.
Yeah. And I
I
think
think
that's
it's a
so
little bit
important.
it's a little bit more personal.
It's important because I think, first of all, I think it's underrated as well. A lot of value for the money that you're paying for, and for people that want that experience, it's like super valuable and it will attract them. For people that don't experience, those are the people that are going to be saying it's not worth it.
For sure.
So, and that's with everything. But yeah, that's my answer for that. And then just touching off what you just said now, recommending or like referring people to something that they may enjoy more is not necessarily a bad thing, which I feel like it's not often practiced in business, or especially in our industry, because if you think about it for a long-term period, you don't want anyone that's not going to enjoy your product to be in your space.
You don't want them to have buyer's remorse.
Exactly, and then they'll come to you within 3 months and be like, I actually don't enjoy it here. I'd rather leave. Because losing that person is going to cost you more than getting a person on board that's going to stay with you for a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Also, you end up doing more harm because let's say you acquire a customer who was on the fence, but you could kind of tell would be better off going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now they come to you. They're part of the gym space, or they're an online client of yours, or they're a PT client of yours, and they're really not fully satisfied, and their needs aren't met. They're now going to tell their mates, I'm not so happy about the service I'm getting.
Exactly.
And that's got nothing to do with your service offering or our service
They don't
offering.
get what they-
It's because what we offer is not aligned with their needs, and that's completely fine. But by forcing the sale, we're actually hurting our brand
True.
long term.
True.
So, and I'm like, we super big on that here at Horizon. I know we're all well versed with the different options around, and we're very happy to like, someone comes in, they're like, I want to do CrossFit. I'm like, cool, Motley Crew next door,
Yeah.
go for it. Or there aren't enough machines in the gym for me. I'm like, okay, well, we're predominantly a functional or strength training focused space, so we don't really have a huge number of machines. So if you want that, BUC's a great option. It's I'm very comfortable to do that because
Yeah.
I know at the same time I'm not doing it for the return, but there is goodwill involved where if you give someone a good recommendation, that may
Comes back
come
around.
back to you
Yeah.
somewhere along the
Oh,
line.
it will. No, that's just what I've experienced.
And we actually touched on it a few episodes ago. Whoa.
Whoa.
Almost
Careful
lost the
there,
mic
buddy.
there, baby. Shee. Gideon and Brandon and myself, I don't think you were on the episode, we spoke about the importance of fitness professionals having a robust and comprehensive network of other professionals to refer your clients.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're on that episode.
I wasn't, I missed it.
So, thank you, Mark. And that's really important. That's the same with if you blow it up to like a slightly more macro scale of like a larger business that we all fall under the umbrella of, kind of referring clients away. It's like, okay, cool, you've either finished your journey with Horizon or you're not ready for your journey with Horizon, so
Yeah.
go elsewhere first, or now go elsewhere. And that's completely fine, because health is a journey, it's an ongoing relationship. We're all within a certain ecosystem. Obviously, we want to meet all the needs of our customers at the end of the day. But in order to deliver quality service, it usually benefits us and them for us to stick to what we know and what we're good at and to kind of double down on that.
Yeah. I agree.
So, yeah, to round it up, I think we both align on the silo points being underrated. Next one, another little element of our friends over at Virgin Active, and this was actually your suggestion, grid classes. Overrated, underrated, and also what are grid classes maybe, for those who don't know, if you know.
I think Well, I don't want to spread misinformation, but I think it's like a circuit based class that they normally do, like on the
Yes.
floor. And I know that you said that you've seen it here and there. I think I've been involved in maybe like one or two when I was still a student at ETA. Um, yes,
Welcome,
Gideon.
Gideon.
But I don't think, I think it's overrated. I think that the value that they portray credit classes to have is slightly more than what you get out of it. Especially if like someone's coming in there and they might have like certain specializations that they need or certain assistance that they need with that or with their movement, they're not going to get the full benefit of that.
No,
And often it happens more than less.
for sure.
So that's why I personally think maybe the onboarding process with that, even though I'm not sure like how it works, it could be more specified towards like, okay, let's make sure no one has like this, and this, so that they can benefit the most out of credit classes, or offer more specialized credit classes for certain people. But so far, from what I've interacted with, it's a very generalized program that's put out there, and people are grabbed and then put into a circuit and they go.
I think it's a very similar vibe to like an F45. So like the injury risk is quite high. I could be mistaken. Like I said, I've seen bits of it here and there. I haven't done a grid class. What I do know is that they are quite popular, um, and the members enjoy it. Like I
Yeah.
know a handful of people that go to them. Why specifically, I don't know. It could be just because it comes with their membership.
Yeah.
And you kind of like book in a class and you go and you do it and it's cool and you're accountable and maybe your mates are going or whatever. But kind of fundamentally, I'm not entirely sure of what kind of sets a grid class apart
Yeah.
from other classes.
I also think that, like, if we're talking on the topic of it, I know the classes that we do, our Horizon Strong classes that we run from a Monday to a Friday,
Saturday now as well.
Monday to a Saturday.
Shout out.
I know from our side how much effort we put into it and how like communicative the coaches are when it comes to like from the Monday class straight to the mobility class on the Tuesday to the Wednesday class. Like we all keep in touch and we all like make sure that we communicate quite well with each member, which is something that I think is very, very valuable and I personally haven't seen in other spaces. So that's why I can speak from my experience here and from what we're cooking, that I know what we offer, and I haven't kind of seen that from like a grid perspective or from a marketing perspective from a grid class. You know what I mean? Where like people are keeping track of your progress, because if you think about it in that setting, they're constantly changing the circuit because they want to move quickly, and those classes are quick so that they can have good turnover and then create leads. But the benefits obviously creating leads, and I think the value that you might be missing out in that kind of classes from like a trainer perspective or instructor perspective is you're not then going that extra personalized step for that person.
It also feels sometimes like the grid class is maybe like a standalone thing. Again, I've got to kind of go and experience it for myself to actually learn if what I'm saying it holds merit.
Yeah,
But
this
if
is obviously
again,
sharing in our opinion now.
yes, and if I bring back my kind of experience of Horizon into it, it's like this is an ecosystem where, case in point, Monday there were 2 new class attendees.
Yes.
The one we kind of noticed that there were some fundamental vulnerabilities in her form, and then I said, I think, well, she actually was like, do you think it might be helpful for me to do a couple
Yes.
of one-on-ones? I said, for sure, but I said, I'm not your person. I don't deal with fundamentals. You should chat to Matt or
And she
Gideon.
came for a session this morning.
And then you kind of, but you're within the ecosystem and
Stop.
you're getting help so that you can actually maximize the value within that whole experience. Whereas if you are in a setup like maybe an F45 or another big group class situation, I don't know if they identify those vulnerabilities and
And
say,
then, like, transition
stay with
you.
me afterwards. Because, for instance, I stayed with her after the class.
Yeah.
I stretched with her for like 5-10 minutes. I chatted to her. How did she
dope.
get here? Just because that's our vibe. Yeah. It's like
and the cool thing is, like, with that membership that she got, she gets a consultation with one of us.
Yes.
Which makes that process seamless, which is what we wanted. And I push this a lot because for someone to really like come into the gym, it's like a big thing. Like it's quite a vulnerable space when you've never been in a gym, or you maybe were in the gym and you went out and now you're coming back in. You don't know what to expect. You don't know how like you're gonna get treated as a client or potential client. because all gyms are different, and like sometimes you don't go to a place that suits you. But I feel like we do a good job in like welcoming everyone, and then
And
just having
supporting
that
them.
and supporting them, and then having that kind of like free consultation makes it effortless for them to be like, maybe I will get help. Whereas like if there was a price tag on it, or if there was another step that would be a barrier to them, they would be like, you know what, just leave it, it's fine. I'll just rather like not come to the class, which we don't want. So it's cool that we have something that can make people face that obstacle, get over it, or like overcome it in their own way, in their own respect. And then either they go back to the class or they maybe realize, okay, that class is not for me, I'll do a different one.
And I
That's
think
amazing.
I think that ties into another element that it's a huge benefit of having highly qualified or highly experienced or both instructors or coaches within your space, because they can then have that pattern recognition around, okay, that person is having an issue with this specific movement within our team. This is who can maybe help them. Let's support them. Let's not let them get discouraged because
Yeah.
they're really struggling with their core stability or their ankle mobility or whatever, and now they're feeling like they're getting all this special attention during the class, and maybe they feel like, I don't want to be the one that's like
Yes.
getting like focused on the whole time,
Yeah.
maybe I feel weird about that, and
I
then
definitely do think people feel like that sometimes. So that's why it's like also just about like how we go about it. And I think we do a good job here.
yes, and I think
And she spoke quite well about how you handle that situation, because she didn't say like, "Oh my, I felt singled out," or that there was a problem, but she just felt aware, and it was nice for her to, like she was saying something along the lines of, her thoughts were saying that it didn't feel comfortable, and then for you to say it kind of confirmed it for her, and then she's
Sure.
like, "Okay, I am right. I'm not just like imagining things." So yeah,
and it's so cool. Like I think as we grow and we're in a we have these check-ins from time to time on the podcast where we're kind of realizing we're in a bit of a growth phase. I think since moving, we've experienced quite significant growth.
yeah,
And I think, as you and I, as you would have seen in that email I sent to you last night, kind of there's a lot on the horizon, no pun intended. And as we kind of move into that space and really like embrace that growth and take it to the next level, that element of really being connected to each member is something that we must really keep at
Yeah.
our core.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if we have to grow slower to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we must keep in touch with that, because that's what makes this
That's
a
true.
special
And
place.
like one thing that I always think about is just when I move too fast sometimes, I just think about this one saying, and I don't know where exactly I saw it, but it's just direction is more important than speed at all times.
Say that again?
Knowing where you're going is more important than how fast you're going to get there.
Very true.
And it's so valuable. And sometimes you'll think like, oh my word, I'm so glad that I got this done quickly. And even though you got it done, there'll still be a piece that you're missing, and that bothers me. Whereas if I go really slowly at my own time, obviously with respect to everyone that I'm working with or collaborating with, then I find that I turn every stone and I know everything that I kind of am operating in. Whereas like moving fast, you miss so many things. You're not really present in that moment, so you don't even have a base to look back at and be like, oh my God, I did that. I remember this in that process. So I think that's such a gift, like moving slowly and then knowing when to move slowly and knowing when to speed up,
Yes.
essentially, yeah.
There's a saying that is, I might butcher it, but it's impatient with actions, patient with results, or patient with outcomes. And there's another one that is from Naval Ravikant, who speaks about what you work on and who you work on that with being the most important elements. And, yes, speed is important, but at the same time, if you aren't directing that kind
Yeah.
of in the way that you want to be moving and with the people that you want to be moving there with, then you're going to end up having to backtrack at some
Yeah,
stage.
exactly. And that's often the case with like I've experienced that personally, and it's often the case sometimes with a lot of individuals. And it's hard because sometimes that feels like you've put in all your time and all your effort, and now you need to go back. But that's like another gift of life. Like having to take a step back takes a lot of humility, and from that you can like learn a lot and obviously become like build your character and obviously become quite resilient in your industry or in what you are passionate about. And I think that's super valuable. Can't buy that anyway.
Speaking about value, so Kyra contributed this specific point. I must preface it with that. You and I both don't have any sort of personal experience with this topic, but I think let's try and touch on it.
Yeah.
So training in phases to align with your cycle for women,
Yeah.
overrated or underrated. So I'll kick us off on that one. I think that it is a severely underrated thing.
I agree with you.
Because I think your endocrine system, and I said this years ago, and I don't know what it came off the back of, but I had this realization where I was like, we are more like plants than we think. And what I meant by that was we respond to our hormones and are controlled by our hormones and are influenced by our hormones a lot more than we think. And plant movement and navigation, if you can call it that, is influenced by auxins and gibberellins, the hormones that are responsible to their kind of light responses. So if you see a plant moving towards the light, that has to do with those hormones. And so it's effectively controlling their movement. Bringing it back to humans, I think that our endocrine system and our hormone levels are hugely impactful in terms of how we feel, how we perform, and our emotional state. And I think that playing into and really being mindful about where your hormone levels are at, if you are in tune with that, can really benefit your health and wellness and can allow you to get the most out of your training, because there could be times where your hormones are at a certain point, and like I said, I don't have deep experience with this, but your hormones are at a certain point or level, and that is then making you feel maybe a little bit run down or a little bit more energized than usual.
Yes.
And now let's take the first example, the rundown. You want to fight through that and try and like push and like overextend yourself, but you'd actually be better off just leaning into it and resting, listening to that natural kind of flow, and you know, picking it back up when you feel more energized, more focused, and more maybe a little bit hormonally balanced. So I think there's a huge amount of benefit to aligning your training cycle with your menstrual cycle as a female. But in terms of the nuance of it, I'm very ill-qualified to answer, but at a high level, that's what I would say. So I think underrated.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. So underrated, very, very underrated. As with everything, whether you're female or male, I think it's important to understand more about yourself. So have self-awareness about as much of your health as you can, because it can give you so many answers and allow you to understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you, as opposed to you as an individual being really hard on yourself because certain training modalities are not working for you. So yeah, I think in my experience, being fortunate to train with different people and like having a special populations qualification, I was able to navigate through training with females, training with males, having some pregnant clients as well. And I think it's amazing to kind of work through that and honestly see when like if you program correctly, how someone can benefit from that, and also not in a physical way but in a mental and emotional way. So like you said, like understanding that at a certain phase, like rest is like or should highly be prioritized. Rest and nutrition and mindfulness practices, and then at a certain phase where you can slowly get back into it, and then at a certain phase taking advantage of your energy and kind of capitalizing on your available energy stores, how you're feeling in an overall basis, and really tackling your progressive movements or your progressive lifts. And the cool thing is programming in a way to prepare for that rest phase will allow you to be in a space where you actually need to rest when you're in that phase, when you actually need to push when you're in that phase. So that's what I've learned from that. In terms of like deep detail, I'd love to share more, but I know that I still have a lot more to learn about it, and that's what I'm currently interested in doing. So advancing my kind of special population qualifications and furthering my understanding of how the body works for males and females. But yeah, I think it's highly underrated. So I'd urge everyone to do that, and I think that there's so much value in like doing that, stabilizing what you know and your foundation, and then just growing every year, and then being able to share that with other people in your circle. So yeah, what do you think, Mark?
I've shot an event with the Minister of Menstruation, Candice Chirwa, and she's got great insight into that kind of thing. If you're an athlete or you any kind of active capacity and you're worried about your cycle, look what she's doing. I think I forget the name of her organization, but she coached. I was shooting an under 18s soccer tournament, and she came and spoke to the captains of the teams and their coaches, and sort of spoke to and it was more to like speak to the coaches about how your cycle will affect your athlete. Besides your emotional state, it's the physical thing as well. You know, you can't be running and training when you've got like debilitating cramps.
Yes.
And it was quite cool. She actually put like cramp stimulators on all the coaches and like did levels of how you know, and like, okay, walk to that chair now while you've got these cramps going on.
Yeah.
So now do you understand how it might be somewhat challenging for your athlete to like, you know, keep up with your training regimen while they this kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, I think it is very underrated, but you must check out what she does.
And I think to add to that, like it shows you how important it is to. It actually gives you gives you a good, like visualization, like an example of someone that knows what's going on, that knows as much of what's going on within their body, can give you a good visualization of what it means to train smart. Because training smart doesn't just mean like doing once or twice a week and doing certain loads just because. It means like training according to what your body is allowing you to do, and then while playing together with all those aspects, getting the results that you are looking for or reaching the goals that you're looking for. And I think, that's just my opinion of like what training smart is. And I think that it comes back to training smart, understanding your body more, and having good self-awareness. And I think all of those three, as well as this kind of adjusting your training program while in a menstrual cycle, is underrated.
And I think there are a lot of parallels, generally speaking, between purely physical, and then life in general, in terms of like how you manage your workload, how you manage your social output, how you manage your studies or your whatever, and how you're feeling, and when to know when to kind of like fuss bait and just fucking suck it up and grind it out, and when to dial it back and listen to what your body is telling you.
I think more often than not, we are all guilty of not listening to our body when it says we need to.
Sure.
Like, how many times do we feel tired? And I think that's the biggest one. How many times do you feel tired in the evening and just say, like, I'm going to sleep in an hour? Like, I'm going to stay up for an hour more. Like, that's the biggest indicator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's a tricky one, though, because you do also want to balance it with, like, of course, if you've got a certain goal, there will be areas that you move into that are going to feel uncomfortable, and you need to know when to or how to discern the feeling of, I actually need to rest, and this is hard. Okay, it's supposed to be hard because I'm doing something that is demanding of me. And I think that comes with experience and or a very good and sort of focused coach, because a lot of the time what I've learned is the coach is there to stop the athlete from doing stupid things. That's the coach's main prerogative, because you work with, most athletes have got this kind of this will to perform at a high level, or this will to compete, and this competitive drive, and it's very difficult for that kind of person to know that it's fine and
So
actually
like it is,
beneficial to dial it back a bit. And you know, like you kind of said, I think you end up, you need to learn how to listen to your body, and it helps having guidance with it. Otherwise, I think it is just a function of time and keeping that elastic tight, as my mom would have said, because there are two outcomes, and it's a kind of a hardcore approach, but I quite like it, to be honest. Either your elastic breaks and you've learned that you've reached your limit, and next time you know when you need to stop or slow down, or you get a little bit of extra stretch and you're like, okay, I know that my capacity is this much. Do I want to take it to this point next time? Maybe, maybe not, but I know that that's what I'm capable of, and that's what my body can handle. And I think kind of playing with the dials a little bit as time goes by is important, because it teaches you how to interpret that messaging from your body. You know, is it a rest message, or is it a, okay, like I said, you're just in that kind of zone of you're going to just dig deep a little bit and push through. But bringing it back to our original overrated, underrated of the menstrual cycle and having your training aligned with that. As I said, I can't really say from any sort of personal experience, but that seems fairly intuitive of like, okay, if you know it's that time of month where you typically feel more lethargic or maybe a little bit weaker, or you're carrying more water or whatever it may be, and that's hindering your training, that's something that you should probably just pay attention to, because that's not a thing that is like, oh, maybe I'm pushing myself too hard, that's why I'm feeling like this. It's like that is a thing that comes in waves. That is just your body saying, okay, I want to spend more energy on my reproductive system than on feeling my best.
This is off topic, but I mean, if I have to think about like something very that's actually stayed with me, and I haven't actually thought about it until now, but like the marathon prep, like I wasn't feeling well about 2 weeks out from the marathon, and I probably didn't like do any runs. The only run I did was like the shakeout one that you sent me to do the Saturday, and at first I was so worried because I was like, I need to run, I need to do something. And then my body was like, obviously, I don't know if it was that I took some time off work and then my body was like kind of feeling everything, or it was right after we moved. So, body was like, what's going on? Like, you're actually trying to do this, but we've been super busy at work. So, like, you have to choose one or the other. And then I just prioritized rest. I just listened to it and I prioritized rest. And I swear, like, there was one stage where I was like a few days out and I wasn't feeling good, and I was like, I don't know if I can still do this. But listening to your body and listening to what it communicates to you and doing that gave me the answer, you know? And whether I felt good on that day, then I was going to do it, or if I felt bad on the day, I would have listened to it from there, because I think the answer lies in what your gut has to tell you, what your body has to tell you, what you are feeling in all these aspects. So I think it's important to be in tune with yourself, because you can also like really hinder yourself from doing further events or further activities. Or it can become very serious if you take it lightly and just be like, oh, it's nothing, you know? So, yeah.
And how do you know when you can push through and when you need to dial it back?
I think I spoke about this in the last podcast, where I was saying like, if you ask someone something, or if you ask yourself a question and the first answer that comes into your head, follow that.
So you
Like
just follow your intuition.
Normally, I follow my intuition, but then like sometimes when there's a conflict of intuition, it's quite often that you can, like personally, I can discern what is more credible and what is not. So what does it sound like when I'm internally having a conversation? More like recommended or not? You know what I mean? So if I think, do I want to do this podcast today? And in my head I say yes, but then I'm thinking to myself like, oh my word, like I would love to do this, and this. But then my initial thought was, yes, I want to do this, and I have so much more reason than the other one. Go with the first one.
Sure.
It's done.
Yeah.
And then stick to that, and then see what amazing things come out of that. And I think that being in that experience and choosing the one over the other and then seeing what comes with it is the beauty of it. And then you get better with time.
And we were chatting previously before we started the podcast now about ChatGPT and how that model works, and the explanation had to do with the LLM, large language model, being trained on text and questions and answers and pattern recognition, and what the answer to your question is most likely to be based off of past interactions. So there's a lot there based off of previous kind of just data and information. And that's what intuition actually is, in my belief, is like intuition is just a snap judgment based off of pattern recognition, where you have all this data subliminally stored in your mind from all of your lived experiences, which in the blink of an eye can give you an answer, and you don't know immediately consciously why that is the answer, because it's based off of a whole bunch of pre-programmed stuff. Yes, there's a margin for error. Yes, it can be wrong from time to time, as ChatGPT can. However, most of the time it's very accurate, where you can, and I've had this happen a lot, and I've chatted to a lot of other business owners, many of whom I look up to in terms of what they've achieved and what they've built, and they say intuition is such an important thing to be aligned with, because a lot of the time you'll find you make a decision against your intuition, and then a week, a month, a year down the line, you go, fuck, I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah.
And it's because, most of the time that's using data that you're not aware of in that moment, but you should probably trust it. And I mean, preaching to the choir, because you say that you like to go with that first kind of...
And just to add on to that, like when you actually are like authentic with how you do your work or how you go in your day-to-day routine, you'll get those answers will be justified by your skill set and your experience. So like when I'm in that situation and I have that thought, like often it's normal to have like human emotion like doubt or like I haven't had imposter syndrome in a long time, but yeah, just thinking about those kind of feelings or emotions, it quickly like washes away when like something else comes up and it's like I wouldn't, like it's almost like an internal conversation, but it's like me saying to myself, I wouldn't suggest this for you to do if you are not capable of doing it. So just do it because you are capable of it. Because if I choose the other one, which is not what I'm aligned with or I'm not comfortable with, I know that I'll probably have to get help externally. You know what I mean? Which is not always favorable sometimes when you're working as an individual, like working as a trainer or working alone. But in a collaborative space, then you can be more open with those kind of things. But yeah.
That was a great overrated, underrated. So we both said underrated for training in phases to align with your cycle for women. I've heard that men also have a cycle.
I haven't heard of that.
Why are you laughing, Mark? What's
That's
wrong with
quite
you, bro?
interesting.
But apparently it's in like 24-hour bursts. Fact check us, because I just pulled that out of thin air. I'll Google it right now.
Yeah. Did we speak about that the one time?
Hey Siri, do men have hormone cycles? Let's
We
see.
should have hormonal cycles.
I'm sure we do.
Like
but
all
it's,
beings should have hormonal cycles.
let's see. drzenovia.com. I don't know how reputable that source is. But male hormonal imbalance, andropause.
I'll definitely.
Okay, this is a whole other episode in and
I
of
definitely
itself.
think that this needs the respect and the time that it deserves in terms of looking through it, and then having a separate episode because of it. Yeah.
It's just
That's my opinion.
Dr. Zenovia is trying to sell me
'cause of your
acne
cycle?
medication. Okay, Dr. Zenovia. Next, isometric training. Overrated, underrated.
Oh.
And this will be our last one before we stop for a little recess.
Okay, so
Otherwise, yeah.
highly underrated. I think isometric training has a lot of value to bring, especially if you pair it with like good principle exercises such as squats, deadlifts,
What is isometric? Just for
bench
the
press,
idiot like me that
a
doesn't
lot of
know
your
exactly
compound
what it
lifts
is.
or isolated lifts.
So you've got concentric, which is the kind of extending or the let's take a push up for example.
Yes.
Pushing up off of the ground, concentric, lowering yourself back down, eccentric, and then holding yourself at any
In that
point
certain phase, isometric.
is isometric.
Sorry for that. Sorry for not giving the,
For
the
the
explanation.
peeps at home.
But yeah, I got so excited because I love this. I love doing like an exercise, for example, my squats or my lunges, and then going into an isometric hold, either mid-set or post-set, or not often before I do the exercise. So either in the middle of the exercise or after the exercise, doing that to create that extra stimulus and then get that full contraction within the muscle, the muscle groups. And that's also because sometimes if I go into another rep, it might not be good form of technique, whereas I know that I could use the isometric aspect and then get good stimulation without costing bad form or bad technique.
What are some day-to-day movements that incorporate an isometric element? Not a movement in the gym. Because I'm thinking to myself now, how does this transfer into day-to-day life? And I'm thinking, okay, we're standing right now. Like that is a form of isometric training because I'm keeping my body
Keeping your
stable.
posture, keeping everything stable.
But what else? Maybe sitting.
Yeah, like sitting and then obviously engaging the core and then holding yourself up, which a lot of people actually don't practice as often, and it's quite engaging when you do it properly, as well as like your breathing techniques. I do it with quite a few of my clients, so like work on their breathing techniques. And I'm pretty sure you've seen me in the gym doing it, laying on the floor and having like a block or ball on my stomach while pushing it out and breathing properly. But what that does for you is like while you're sitting and working on admin, you can basically always make sure that you kind of activating the muscle groups or making sure that you feeling good, because sometimes you could be chilling, doing some admin, and then go into some movement and then feel discomfort that you didn't feel before. And doing that or doing breathing exercises while holding like an isometric hold or certain poses can help you to evaluate, are you ready to go into movement? And it can always keep you ready to go into movement.
I'm thinking maybe that the reason why isometric exercises or isometric holds are so challenging is because there are relatively few day-to-day movements that incorporate that kind of movement.
Yeah.
Maybe. I know that generally like the paradigm around weight training is concentric eccentric. It's moving up and
Yeah.
down. It's yes, there are people who will incorporate an isometric, but it's still, I would say, like 90% concentric and eccentric, speaking from at least
Yeah.
personal experience, and then 10% we spend doing isometric stuff. So there's that element of we don't train it that much. But I also think that just generally, like other than standing, I don't know how day to day we do it.
I think if you have to look into certain actions where you're holding something for a long period of time in a certain position, that could be where we could reference it or kind of
For
like
sure,
take
but
it and
like-
transition it.
But like, what is an example of that?
Like holding something overhead, like while someone's working on something, lifting something up and holding it there for a long period of time.
Yes.
Or like picking up something and keeping it there, or kind of standing a certain way. I don't, like there's so many ways where we use it, and we might not think much of it because it's only like 2 or 3 seconds. But depending on the phase that you're in, I think it's quite valuable to have isometrics in that movement, because in any compound movement as well, or in any sport-specific movement, whether it's running, playing football, playing soccer, playing football, playing rugby, there's a lot of certain phases where you are going to be in one position longer than the others. And I think with isometrics, you can load the tendons, the ligaments appropriately, so that when you are put in that position, your body's not taking strain, but your body's able to hold it, like stimulate that group, and then respond and transfer it somewhere else.
You know what
That's
it,
just off the top of
you
my
know
head.
what it also could be is that typically most movements involve a concentric, isometric, and eccentric portion.
yes.
Even if the eccentric portion is a fraction of a second, you're still using that capacity
Exactly.
to stabilize.
Exactly.
So let's say now, let's take this scenario to taking your shopping in a shopping bag to your car in the parking lot from the grocery store, whatever. The walking now, each step, even if it's literally like 15 milliseconds,
Yeah.
there's a moment of stillness,
Yes,
I think,
yes.
where, okay, now when you're in the gym, it's very unlikely that you're going to find a moment outside of the scenario of doing a wall sit that you're going to be holding yourself like that, sitting on an imaginary
Yeah.
chair for a minute.
Yeah.
But that point in that position and that sort of activation will come in even in little micro doses, and because you've overloaded it and trained it at a higher intensity whilst you're in the gym, you're more comfortable
Yeah.
executing on that movement in other scenarios. It could also be that it's just less apparent in day-to-day life, but of course, like isometrics involve a lot of things like stabilization. Which,
And I think that's all important aspects when you're trying to progress in a lot of your compound lists or your strength program. So essential from like a preventative injury model, to make sure that when you're doing that movements, you are complementing it with isometrics, just to feel how it feels to hold it in certain positions over a long time, so that, and once you're aware of that, it goes back to just being like having that awareness of your body and knowing like which phases am I stronger in, which phases am I weaker in, and if I am like doing a like 3 rep max or 1 rep max, what phases should I really be careful of, and how would I know that I'm improving this? It will just allow you for more kind of it'll allow you for more space to kind of see what you can use to measure your progress in this, I think as well.
You know what I also find really interesting about isometrics, and where I see a lot of value is that, and obviously I've learned through interaction, not through books, but it's like if you hold this thing like this for an extended period of time, eventually you're going to start to feel maybe a little bit of like serratus anterior.
Yes.
You're going to start to feel a little bit of trap. You're going to start to feel a little bit of pec and stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have felt
Yeah.
if you were, I don't know,
Like just
doing
chilling.
this
Yeah.
or doing it like this.
Yes.
Because there's no moment for you to almost have like the activation that you would have had by just stabilizing it. So I think to tie it back into your kind of injury prevention model type thing, it can help a lot with balance, which can help you in day-to-day life to maybe not fall as frequently, or for when you do fall to have the ability to maybe catch yourself and
Yeah.
stick a landing.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that carryover exists as well. It creates a different. It's quite weird. It's like I don't know if it's quite proprioceptive, because proprioceptive is about like the environment. It's more about how you are like receiving and interacting with your body in relation to this weight or
Yeah.
this stimulus, which I think you get in a unique way from isometrics that you don't get from other like concentric, eccentric type movements.
And then, like, just to put the cherry on top, I think that done by itself, it's not as effective as when it's done like in pair with concentric and eccentric movements. So I think it's super effective when in a working set. You know, like when you're focusing on a slow downward phase and a fast upward phase, and then going into like an isometric hold. Like I think that just allows it to fully work at the right time that you want it to, in the right phase, and then effectively help you improve your overall lift. So yeah,
Amazing.
amazing.
Thank you for listening. This is Beyond Physical, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening to the show, guys. We love answering specific questions. So if there's anything you want to know, leave a comment or reach out to us directly at HorizonZA on Instagram, or email us at movement@horizongym.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Seb Prentice, and this is Beyond Physical.